seem a little self-centered, but I want to open with a prayer for the speaker. Believe me, it's for your benefit. Father, help me put all this distraction down and just deal with your word this morning. A couple of weeks ago when we had the kids up here, Tina had a verse from memory, John 1:12. Anybody remember it? To those that believe in his name, he gave the right to become the children of God. And I don't know about most translations, but like the King James, New American Standard, say the power to become the sons of God. So when she read it in whatever translation that was, not that it was wrong, but it just caught our attention, the right to become the children of God. You know, like there's some kind of legal status or something. I don't know. I mean, it just caught our ear. So I went home and looked that up. And the Greek word it means power, it means authority, it means like a governmental decree has been made. That's awesome. So it is power, it is the right. We are children of the King of Kings. Right? Royalty. And it's not just something you can be or you can become. We have the right. We're royalty. We're beloved, the children of God. And you know, royalty is it's in the newspapers all the time, right? It's Prince Harry or whatever. I mean, they just can't leave them alone. But you got your dukes and your duchesses and your marquises and your viscounts and I mean, there's all kinds of royalty. If you're anything related to the king or the queen, or you know, you're royalty. And the thing that's really intriguing in this, for me, all those families that have this royal nature, right, whatever their title is, all their children are trained to be leaders. They don't have a say. They're just brought up that way. And you can tell when they walk into a room, there's an air, right? There's an authority that's just unspoken. You can just feel it, right? What about us? We're royalty. We need to be leaders. Isn't that what God really wants? You know, Proverbs 28:1 tells us that the righteous, that's us, right? The children of God, the beloved children of God are His righteous. The royalty are to be as bold as lions. We've got to find our roar. We've got to find our roar. God intends for us to be leaders in the kingdom. We were created to rise above all the adversity of the world and to lead others out from where they are, into salvation, into freedom. We've been given the keys of authority over death and over Hades for that very purpose, to lead them out. God wants us to live as if no weapon formed against us can prosper, because that's what He promised. No weapon formed against us can prosper. You've got to find that roar. The gates of hell can't prevail against us. That means with that authority, with that roar, we can go on the offensive. We can attack Satan. We can go to the gates of hell and kick it down. They can't prevail against us. Where's our roar? It's our right. We have been given a governmental decree in the spiritual kingdom. We are children. We are royalty. We have that authority and that power. We're to be bold as lions. Not against flesh or blood. Flesh or blood is not our enemy, right? Does the Scripture say that? Not against flesh or blood, but against principalities and darkness. Got to find that roar. So this is actually a series of sermons that God has given me, and I say that with great hesitation because I don't like series. And that's not, other people can have series, I'm not putting anybody down for that. But for me, I just feel this personal conviction about getting something each week as God speaks to me and give to you. And I say that tongue-in-cheek because for the first 4 years I was here, every week it was the same topic, right? Relationship, relationship, relationship. That's kind of a series. That's kind of like 4 years. I mean, I don't think anybody can top that record. But, so God has got me talking about leadership from the eyes of various people in the Bible. And this week it's Samuel. But we've got Moses lined up, Joseph, Joshua, Gideon, Peter, Paul. We've got a lot of, I don't know, this might last 5 years. But it's about our roar. finding our roar. And some introductory concepts on kingdom leadership. I just got to get this out before we look at Samuel. First, leadership is more about attitude than access. We've had people tell us, kind of jokingly, but kind of not jokingly, it must be really easy for you. You're a pastor, all you got to do all day is sit around and study the Word. Maybe you give a sermon on Sunday and that's it. And I know you guys know different, but I would invite people like that to follow me around for just one day. You know, sometimes I have less time than on my previous job before we were pastors. But the truth is, it's not about access, and you don't find the time. You have to make the time. And that has to do with attitude, right? You don't find the time to get close to God. You have to make the time. It takes an attitude to do that. Our attitude is actually how we see. Our attitude shapes how we see ourselves, how we see God, how we see the problems around us. Right? Depending on how our attitude structures our thought process on how we see ourselves, how we see God, how we see the problems around us. And when we look at Samuel and all these others, I want you to keep these concepts in mind. How they saw themselves, how they saw God, how they saw the problems around them, all had to do with the attitude, not the access, not where they were, not the position they had, not the time that it had to do with what was in their hearts. Right? Attitude, not access. The second thing is that true leaders in the kingdom are servants. You'd think this is the opposite of the world. You know, leadership is not about servanthood, but actually, the world kind of holds this too, but they don't really stand on it too much. Like in the Navy, we used to say the best leaders were the best followers. You can't give an order if you're not good at taking them, right? And they stand on that. And yet the world thinks that people that are leaders have to be take charge kind of people. You know, and they don't see servanthood as part of that. Even Shakespeare pulled this out in one of his plays, and I can't remember which one, but the opening dialogue is two soldiers standing guard, and one is complaining because the higher up, he has to do all the work and they never do any work, and the other one says, every soldier has someone he answers to, and the first one says, well, who's the general's general? And the answer was, the general's wife is the general's general. Everybody has somebody to answer to. Servanthood is everywhere. What does Jesus say about servanthood? He says, the greatest among you is the servant of all. The greatest among you is the servant of all. You want to be leaders. You want to be servants. And you know, you don't have to go far to do that. You don't need a position. You don't need a title. Just find the need and meet it. Find a hurt and heal it. Find the need and meet it. Find a hurt and heal it. You know, I need to go back to the attitude thing for a minute. I got so excited I skipped some of my notes here. But we're talking about attitude and how we see ourselves, how we see God, and how we see problems. And I just want to point out that this is scriptural. When Joshua went into the promised land, the first challenge God gave him was take Jericho. Not one of these little cities in the valley or hamlets. You know, you're going to take this big walled city, right? We're going to start with that one. And God said to Joshua, see, I have delivered Jericho into your hands. See, he had to see it to believe it. And he had to believe with his sight, his faith. Right? It becomes what we see. What we see in the faith is what we believe, and it shapes our attitude. You know, back to servanthood again. Find the need and meet it. Find a hurt and heal it. There's an old saying that says, if serving is beneath you, then leading is above you. Now, if serving is beneath you, leading is not where you're going to go. If you're too big to serve, then you're too small to lead. Servanthood, and we're going to see this in every one of the leaders that we look at. Don't wait for a title, don't wait for a platform, don't wait for a position. Serve God where you are. Serve Him where He has you and where He needs you. Just find something and do it. You know, we've never told anybody not to do stuff here that I know of. we try to correlate everybody's activities so that they aren't counterproductive. But I've never told anybody don't come forward and do something. The last one is true leaders are surrendered. And it sounds sort of like servanthood, being surrendered, but there is a subtle difference. A servant says, whatever you want me to do, Lord. And someone who's surrendered says, however you want me to do it. Whatever path you put out in front of me. Not my way, but your way. It's not about what you do, it's about how you're surrendered to do it God's way instead of yours. Servanthood. Too many Christians today look for an elevation in their position without wanting to walk the path that develops the character that will make them ready for that position. Right? Servanthood gets you to that place, but surrender makes it possible. We'll see that as well. Okay, let's look at Samuel. We're going to start in chapter 3 of the book of Samuel. 1 Samuel, sorry. We can do them both, but 1 Samuel chapter 3. And before I begin, I always like to give you some context. Samuel's mother was barren. And she had been praying for a child, and praying for a child, and praying for a child. And one year when they were at the temple giving their offering, she was praying so hard the priest thought she was actually drunk. He tried to send her away. She said, no, I'm praying for a child. He blessed her. She went home. She had a child. And she was so overwhelmed with God's grace to give her this child that she dedicated him to the Lord, which means as soon as she weaned him, she brought him back to the temple and gave him up to serve the Lord at the temple. In that temple was a priest named Eli and his two sons, Hophni and Phinehas, who were greedy. They were beating up people for what was supposed to be God's portion. They were taking it for themselves. They were having women, they were laying with women in the sanctuary of the temple. They were doing all kinds of stuff like that, and Eli apparently tried to correct them, but they weren't paying him any attention, so he just dropped the issue, which means he didn't do anything at all. God had sent a prophet to Eli, saying, because you're not taking care of this, because you people, your sons and you are not, because you're not honoring me, I'm going to cut you off. And then brought in on that is Samuel being brought back to the temple. Now it says his mother weaned him before she brought him back. And I would just say that in some cultures, I tried hard to find out exactly what age that would be. Some cultures, they keep the child on the breast until the age of 6. I don't think it was that far. But 2 or 3? What age do you think that child was when she dropped him in the midst of that dysfunctional family? All right, so we're in chapter 3, starting at verse 1. It says, now the boy Samuel was ministering to the Lord before Eli, and the word from the Lord was rare in those days, and visions were infrequent. The word from the Lord was rare. Visions were infrequent. I've heard people today, large portions of the church, believe that we don't get word from the Lord and visions are no more. And they say it's because that which is perfect has come, meaning the Bible. And I'm telling you, even back then before the Bible, there was a period where word from the Lord was rare and visions were infrequent. It had nothing to do with the Bible, which was yet to come. It had to do with men's hearts.
Yes, that's right.
It is. We need to stand on that because, well, this is a prophetic community, so we know that that's not true. But we need to be able to present it out into the community. Word from the Lord is for today. Not because of that which is perfect has come. It's because the word from the Lord is word from the Lord. He wants to speak to his beloved children who are his heirs and who need to roar. Another reason the word from the Lord was rare was because this was a period of time following the judges. Shortly after Joshua brought the children into the promised land, they went on a series of battles. They did so much, but they didn't do it the way God said, and so chaos began to develop, right? The 12 tribes divided up and began to take on their own territories, and there wasn't unity. There was fragmentation. There was battles over here, battles over there. They were beginning to intermarry. They were worshiping foreign gods. I mean, life was this was the dark ages of the Israelite people, if you want to put that phrase on it. This was a terrible time. It's time to Judges. And when Samuel comes on the scene, that is just about to change. God is about to take things back. But that's why the word of the Lord was infrequent. Again, it had to do with men's hearts. It's about access. I mean, it's not about access. It's about attitude. Those priests in the temple, they had all kinds of access, but they had the wrong attitude. And so God's word was not coming, even in the temple. Right? Wrong attitude. We've already talked about Eli's sons, the two priests, how they were arrogant, they were greedy, they were immoral. They were giving God no honor. They were giving him no reverence. They were not making him special in any way. And I submit to you that the word of the Lord was rare because they made him common. The word of the Lord was rare because the Lord of the word was made common. Right? Verse 2. It happened at that time that Eli was lying down in his place. Now his eyesight had begun to grow dim, and he could not see well, and the lamp of God had not yet gone out. And the lamp of God had not yet gone out. This has nothing to do with leadership, but I got to stop here. This is a prophetic word for us this morning. You know, it doesn't matter how dark the storms are around you. It doesn't matter how decrepit the world is. God's lamp has not gone out.
That's right.
It doesn't matter how old you feel. It doesn't matter how tired you are. It doesn't matter how washed up or how burnt out you feel. God's lamp has not gone out. There's still time, and he's not done with us. We need to find our roar.
Oh, God, thank you. Thank
Maybe
you,
that was
God.
for me.
Yes, Lord.
There's still time.
There's still time.
My God, my God.
The lamp of God had not gone out, and Samuel was lying down in the temple where the ark of God was. He was lying down in the temple where the ark of God was. Can you get any closer? Could you get any closer? This is a little boy. This is a little boy who was basically abandoned by his parents. I know they did it because they were dedicating him to God, but he didn't know who God was. Dropped in the midst of this. It doesn't say it was abusive, but how could it be anything but? These two people who all he knew of was this God who he lost his family because his parents dedicated him to this God that he did not know. Oh, we haven't even got to that verse yet, verse 7. Now Samuel did not yet know the Lord, or the word of the Lord.
Wow.
And yet he clung to that. That was the attitude, not the access. The attitude, not the access. So Samuel was lying down in the temple of the Lord where the ark was. The Lord called Samuel and he said, "Here I am." And then he ran to Eli. "Here I am, for you called me." But he said, "I didn't call you. Go lie down. So he went and laid down, and the Lord called yet again, Samuel. So Samuel arose and went to Eli, and he said, Here am I. You called me. But Eli answered and said, I did not call you, my son. Go lie down. Samuel must have been getting tired of this. And he didn't even know the Lord yet. You know, when God speaks to us, He doesn't always speak in a booming voice. Go to South America. Samuel thought it was Eli. He needed to be trained to recognize the voice of God. It doesn't come in a strange, well, I suppose it could. Maybe in one of these other leaders that we're about to study, we'll see that it comes in a different voice, but I don't think so. God speaks to us in a voice that we will hear, not one that's going to scare us away. So the Lord called again to Samuel for the third time, and he arose and he went to Eli, and he said, Here I am, for you called me. What's up with this? And then Eli discerned that it was the Lord calling the boy, and he said, Go back, and if he calls, you shall say, Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening. Submitted. So Samuel went and lay down in his place, and the Lord came and stood and called as at other times. He stood.
Yes.
That word means to stand, but it means to stand in a form of like permanence, like I am not going to be moved, to be placed, to be set. And the only thing I can think of to describe it is the history lesson of the Battle of Thermopylae. Anybody familiar with that? The 300 Spartans, 700 Thesbians. When Greece was attacked by Persia, they came against Greece with 100,000 men. 100,000 men marching along the coast. And the Greeks couldn't raise enough forces in time, and so the Spartans took 300 men, their rear guard, the guards of the palace. King Leonidas took 300 Spartans, and he went to the gap of Thermopylae. It was a strategic move. They couldn't get a huge number of people through that small gap, and so it was easier to defend. 700 other Grecian people, Thesbians, came alongside. So there was 1,000 to 100,000. 100,000? I get excited. 100 to 1 were the odds. And they stood for 3 days in that gap, fighting this ferocious battle. And when they were done, 20,000 Persians were dead, and all 1,000 of the Greeks. They took a stand in that gap and said to the Persians, "You will not pass." And they were beaten down. But when God takes a stand in our life, He's not going to be beaten down. In fact, the battle is already won.
That's right.
And He's taking a stand in our lives today. Where's our roar? It says, Then Samuel grew. So I'm going to skip all the way to verse 19. Samuel grew thus with the Lord, and the Lord let none of His words fail. Took this little boy, who by all rights should have been bitter about the God that caused him the loss of his family, the God who caused him to be placed in this immoral, greedy, had to be abusive setting. But no, his attitude was, I want this God. Even at that young age. God took that attitude and grew him, stood in his life, and let none of his words fail. Samuel could roar. None of his words fail. The next verse, verse 20, says, All Israel from Dan to Beersheba knew that Samuel was confirmed as a prophet of the nations. God stood in his life. He upheld his word and confirmed his leadership among his people. All because he had an attitude that supported this. Nothing to do with access. It was all about his attitude. It was about his servanthood. And it was about his surrendered nature. Let's just stand together. We're going to close in prayer. Father, this morning, we want to roar. We want to be the leaders in your kingdom. Father, make us like Samuel. Father, give us an attitude that will permit us to see with our faith and believe what you would do through us. Father, give us a servant's heart that will bring healing and encouragement, light and life to those around us. Father, give us surrendered lives. Lead us to walk humbly in the paths that you set before us. Father, let us receive those things that develop our character, transform us into the image of your Son, Jesus. Father, give us a roar this morning. In Jesus' name I pray.